All right, kings, gentlemen, everyone else, welcome to yet another exciting episode of Guy Who Thinks Cars Are the Devil, Driving a Car. So, today I want to talk about the whole 3 days to Kyiv thing, because, well, it was very funny, right, and it turned out to be not so true. So let's look at what really possessed the Russian government to believe that they could take Ukraine. So a lot of people have been asking that question. Okay, why did Russia invade Ukraine? And we've talked about what is the deep reason for the invasion on this channel before. But one of the most obvious, simplest reasons we've had is that Putin thought he would win. Putin thought that Ukraine would be a pushover, and he would be able to conquer the country, relatively without cost, and so basically just sent the people to do a takeover like they did in Crimea in 2014. Which is why a lot of the Russian forces at the beginning, they were marching in parade formation. They didn't have enough fuel, they didn't have water, they didn't have food. Like they were packing parade uniforms, for Kyiv, not the shit you actually need to invade a country, because Putin did not believe that the Ukrainians would put up a resistance. As we now know, Ukrainians didn't only put up resistance, they have basically become a byword for heroic resistance against foreign invasion, right? So this is not just, this has been really one of the great you shall not pass moments of history that we've witnessed. Unfucking believable. This is just one of those moments of you shall not pass in history that you often hear about. That is really the Ukrainian resistance to Russian invasion. So how the fuck could this guy believe that the Ukrainians would not resist? And for this, we're going to have to actually think about, okay, what is Putin's thought process? Now, I've mentioned him last video, but there is this Russian blogger. His name is Anatoly Karlin. He's a vatnik, not a very pleasant person, but he did have a period where he went into a very deep depression after he realized that basically Russia is a basket case of a country, and he started speculating about Putin's thought process. And I think that Karlin actually gets him right, which is to say that Vladimir Putin is not a 4D chess player. He's not a particularly good strategist. What he is, he's a very dumb boomer who watches TV and takes the TV seriously. He actually believes the TV. Like, for example, Putin's armored train, which he uses to travel around Russia, is especially modified so that he does not lose the TV signal when the train passes through tunnels. So that the man is that addicted to watching television. And he seems to base policy based on what he hears from, for example, Vladimir Solovyov, who is like the Russian Tucker Carlson, basically peddling disinformation, peddling the Vatnik line over in Russia on Russian state TV. So, but you're thinking, no, that's not right. How can the president of a large country, of a nuclear power, be such a dumbass? And the answer is, like we said in the Russia is Weak video, because Russia is an authoritarian country. It means that if you want to get in power, you need to kiss ass. Competent people who say the truth are not welcome in the power structures of authoritarian countries. You advance in life by kissing ass, by being part of the vertical of power, as they call it, which is really built on compliance, corruption, and just lying. So Putin was likely fed bullshit by the people he selected for their utmost loyalty and ass-kissing, and he fired anyone who would bring him bad news. And anyone who brought him bad news fell into disfavor and was sort of sidelined and removed from power altogether. So the man actually believed that he started believing the propaganda. And this is actually a very real possibility with these authoritarian types. They start believing their own propaganda because they fire or sideline everyone who tells them anything otherwise. So the state, in essence, becomes, in aggregate, much dumber than any one individual member. There was even a sort of an interview with a defector from the FSB's 5th Directorate early on in the war, where he said, basically, we sent the reports to the Kremlin that the Kremlin wanted to hear. They didn't tell us they wanted actual reports about the situation on the ground in Kyiv. If they had told us that, we would have sent very different reports, actually truthful reports about the Ukrainian fighting spirit. So it's not like the Russian state didn't know. The Russian state couldn't know. The decision makers couldn't know about the Ukrainian fighting spirit because the decision makers were used to basically getting the propaganda line. Now this brings us to this channel's favorite whipping boy, which is John Mearsheimer. John Mearsheimer is a theoretician of the the realist school of international politics, foreign policy. I don't know what they call it these days. Doesn't really matter at this point. Anyways. And the core contention of geopolitical realism is that states will follow their own rational self-interest when acting in geopolitics. They're not so much guided by ideology or some other things. And it's a very clever retort. It's a very clever jape at someone who believes that, the USA did this because democracy, or the Soviet Union did that because of communism, or I don't know, medieval Spain did this because of Catholicism. That's like, oh no, it's actually all very cynical regime security, acquisition of resources, big powers defending prestige, small powers protecting their sovereignty as best they could. And of course, it sounds very clever, but it falls apart under examination because, and here's the thing, we observe states, both in history and in the present day, take irrational acts all the time. It's like states do stupid things. States do suicidal things. I believe, for example, that the Russian state, in invading Ukraine, has essentially doomed itself, right? There is no coming back from this sort of thing that they have initiated. And they did this under the belief that they could conquer Kyiv in 3 days, right? And the reason why states do these things is because they're run by people. And people are not rational actors, right? In fact, I would say that the further up you go, up the socioeconomic ladder, the less rational in the classical sense people are. That the poor are the most rational because they can't afford to do things out of quote-unquote non-materialistic reasons, whereas the wealthier you are, the freer you are to do things because of your ideology, or because of your religion, or because you're bored, or out of spite, or out of some genuinely stupid reasons. And once you get into the absolute elite of society, like, for example, President of the Russian Federation, you are actually free to do some incredibly stupid things. And if you're an authoritarian leader, there is really literally no check on your behavior. You can do things which are suicidal not only for yourself, but for your entire state. Now, Russia will not survive this war, and it was led into this war by the very human comedy of errors, which we call the Kremlin. And this is actually an extension of this whole theory that human beings are rational actors. They are not. Human beings are not rational actors. Human beings are, believe it or not, primarily driven by things they believe, not things they ought to want. This is why Homo economicus is bunk as well, because we observe people sacrificing for what they believe to be the greater good all the time. People do not follow their quote-unquote rational self-interest. No, they follow religions, they follow ideologies, they follow these higher callings, especially European people. And anyways, that's really the long answer to it. 3 days to Kyiv. It was the propaganda line, and Putin believed it. Bye-bye, guys, and see you in the next one.